Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are, whoever you are, and welcome once again to Full Fat Spoiler Chat, the show in which we, the folks at Nerd Caliber, talk about some recent piece of entertainment, go in depth on whether it was good, it was bad, what worked, what didn't, are there messages, themes, things to watch out for, things to pay attention to, all of that sort of stuff, which means we give out spoilers. Tonight we're talking about the recent Netflix series Shadow and Bone, and I'm absolutely sure we have lots of things to say about this series. I'm Rodney Brown. I'm the editor in chief of Nerd Caliber, first person shooter on Facebook, Burley_adopter on Twitter, a couple of other places. And joining me tonight is just because I gotta honor the tats. We're gonna start with Greg. Greg, if you would.
Evening, everybody. Greg Snyder, aka Wonder Llama Photography, aka Rodfather 2.0.
All right.
Rodney's doppelganger. There we go. I've got my lotus flowers working here tonight.
Yeah, I got one. So.
Yeah, if this was not quite as PG-13, I would take off the shirt and show you the Balrog on my back, but
which is amazing.
That's a whole other thing. Anywho, longtime contributor. I'm just going to stick with the associate here at Nerd Caliber. It covers all the bases.
Because he can never remember his title.
Actually, it's perfect that our good friend Gogo is with us here tonight. She's going to be joining us up in Boston at Red Raven Studios, photography studio we have just south of Boston. So if you're on the Horn and you're in the greater Boston area, you want to do some creative portrait stuff, build crazy scenes, bathtub full of blood, whatever you need, we can accommodate it. Look us up online, Red Raven Studios.
HIPAA warning, not real blood.
Not real blood, no. Okay. It's mostly cornstarch and cocoa powder.
Yeah.
It works out really well.
Really sticky, but it's going to be amazing.
And by the way, that's also, for those who don't know this, why red velvet cake tastes like chocolate and is red. Cocoa powder does that. Anyway, and then, as has been mentioned, Gogo, if you would.
Hello, I'm Gogo Incognito, and I just realized I don't actually have an official title with Nerd Caliber, which means I'm going to bug Rodney, the guy who's in charge, for that stat, because I'm that bish and I like to know my worth. Anyway, I want to say for all of you who are con goers and you've been looking at what's going to happen and what's going to happen, Dragon Con. Guys, it is happening. It is going to be a chunk of in person. It is going to be virtual fully. Don't go bug all your people who make it happen about all the in-person stuff. We don't know yet. We're waiting on everything. So I just want to say there's so much that's going to happen, but it's not up to us. It's up to the city of Atlanta, what we can actually do. And then it's going to be up to the actual hotels. So don't get mad at anyone if you're like, do we still have the underwear superhero party? They don't know. Just like I don't know about my own stuff and I'm staff at the Bunny Hutch. We're all waiting to see what's up, but be happy that it's happening. Also, you just get extra sky points from the stars if you're vaccinated, if you're able to do that medically. So I'm just saying, get vaccinated if you can.
That's what you just said.
Be safe. There we go.
Do the smart thing if you can.
Do the smart thing if you can. Do the thing. Because cons are coming back in a limited fashion.
Absolutely.
Greg, give you a heads up if you can move closer to your mic or something, because I don't think Gogo can actually hear you when you're talking.
No, but I do think he looks very handsome.
He does. All right. And
before for you guys.
Oh, so nice. Before we get into this topic, let's see. Todoroki, welcome to the chat. And I believe that's all we've got so far. That is correct. All right. And if you do have any questions, and once again, if you've seen this, please feel free to join in the chat. Throw in your comments, respond to our notes. If you haven't and you don't mind spoilers, same thing. If you haven't and you do mind spoilers, obviously you should be watching something else.
Not the best show for you tonight.
Not the best show for you tonight. So, starting right off like we always do, what is this show? It is a series on Netflix that is based on the first book in a trilogy from, at this time, for this book, a first-time author, Leigh Bardugo. It is a fantasy novel that she herself has described as Tsarpunk, because it's set in kind of a fictional, very late 19th century, possibly very early 20th century, I'm going with late 19th, Russia, and similar places around Europe and Eurasia. And the books came out, the first one came out in 2010. There are 3 books in that first trilogy that tells the story of the main character in the books and in this series, Alina Starkov. There are 2 other sets of duologies. One which tells the story of other characters who actually happen to be put into the series. They weren't in the first trilogy.
Thank goodness.
Well, we'll get into that too. And then the second duology, the second pair of books, sort of combines all of them, all of the various characters from the previous books. And generally well received. Definitely well received for the world building, for the sort of innovative way Bardugo treats magic. Even going to the extent of not really calling it magic. What do they call it? The small science?
Small science.
Yes.
Yes.
And then it got picked up by, of all people, DreamWorks as a potential movie. That fell through. Amazon picked it up. That apparently didn't go anywhere, and now Netflix grabbed it and turned it into this. And you all got to see it. So the gist of the story is this orphan Alina Starkov and her best friend, maybe with benefits. Well, not then, when they were orphans, of course. Malyan Oretsev are part of this kingdom of Ravka, loosely not Russia. Ravka has a big problem that more than 2/3 of it to the east is almost completely shut off to the slightly less than 1/3 to the west by this thing called the Fold, or in the books, the Unsea. And it is a rip of darkness that runs right down through the land. It is pretty wide, and it is filled with these monster demonic creatures called Volcra.
Yeah.
So getting across is tough.
If you have a hard time visualizing that, just because at first, like when I was reading all about it, I was like, it's a fold, it's a what, an unsea. Imagine that there is a place that was transversable, and then somebody took a giant curtain and they spread it across the whole way, except that curtain is evil. And it's made of shadow darkness, and it's not just one curtain, it's a curtain, and then there's a space, and then there's a more curtain. And in between that is a shadowland where the Volcra live. So to be able to get across, you have to risk possibly certain death.
Possibly certain. Exactly. That's a good way.
I saw it as, especially from the way they first did the big epic reveal, reminded me a lot of the Wall in Game of Thrones.
Yep.
That
made
too,
out of
absolutely.
boiling shadow and monsters instead of ice and rock.
And
same idea.
What was that?
Transects the.
There was a series of books that became a series of kind of cheesy sci-fi channel movies back when it was science fiction channel.
Sharknado?
No. Alien presence came down on Earth and created this black mist wall around itself, and people went in and came out, if they came out, different, sort of like the recent Natalie Portman movie. But anyway, Yes.
Wow. This
I can't remember what it is. Anyway, it's like that. It's
No
great big
idea.
wall of darkness, rolling black clouds. Um, they move across it in these they're essentially like sand sailing ships. Small ships with skids, and they have to have with them people who are called Grisha. And that's why all of the books in this are called the Grishaverse. Grisha are
Grishaverse.
the
Grishaverse.
Grishaverse. The Grisha are people who can use these small sciences, what we would call people who are can use magic. Um, and that's one of the only ways they can get through there. Somebody's got to blow wind constantly to keep the boat going, no matter what direction the wind, if there is any wind, inside is blowing. So
For
things
those
like
of
that.
you who are Harry Potter people and you want to know what people or things are called, they all do have names. They're just maybe not what you would expect. Like a wind worker. Oh, also, like if you're Avatar people, like I
Yep.
was immediately like, hey, airbender. It's not an airbender. A squaller,
Yep.
like a squall out at sea, which is a wind-borne giant storm. A squaller is who can just move the wind at any time. And you learn this as you go through the story. Like, in fact, I can't actually remember what they're all called because there's some of them that we don't see at all, like what I still call waterbenders. I don't
Let's see who else was there. There was the Heartrenders.
Right.
Heartrend. Oh no, we're gonna get to that.
There's Inferni, which are
The fire users.
Fire.
Yeah.
fire magic people, basically.
Yeah.
Those were alchemy. Sorry, I just had to look this up because I couldn't remember all the different orders. And the one who we'll get to shortly, who's got sort of the magnum opus of powers.
Right. So again, real quickly telling the basic story as it leads up into the first episode. This girl, Alina, who is in the Ravkan military, is on one of these expeditions across with her friend Mal. Things go south, really fast. People do dumb things. And she winds up, in attempting to save Mal, exhibiting the ability to summon light, which is something that no other Grisha can do. But there are myths about this, and that myth is that someday a sun summoner will come to wipe away the fold or the unsea. And that's where we go. She is possibly this sun summoner. And things go from there. The only other magic you need to be aware of is that apparently the darkness is a type of magic, and there is one person in this story who can manipulate that, and is there's all right. I'll have to think about who the other one is. You'll have to tell me later. I can't remember.
I will tell you.
But who can manipulate this, and that is in this series General Kerrigan, who's apparently in the book simply called what they reveal his name to be at the end, the Darkling. And so, and he can manipulate darkness magic. And that's where this story starts and continues for 8 episodes or 6 episodes.
Yeah.
Gosh, I don't remember now. I mean,
8.
I watched it like twice. No, there can't be just 6. Was there
8.
really?
There was 8.
Yep.
8, yeah.
Anyway, so that's the gist of it right there. Now what we're going to do is, as we always do, we're going to start with what did we like about this? What did we like? What worked? What was good about it? What did we enjoy, etc. And I think, because you've been chomping at the bit for this, we're going to start with Gogo.
Oh dear. You can also tell me when to shut up because I have so many thoughts and feelings. This really
But we'll start with
worked for
just
me.
the likes and good and so on.
Yep.
Okay.
This worked for me on a lot of levels. The show. I really liked that we got another dark fantasy show with a femme protagonist. I am always about that. We had supporting characters of many different, and again, we are in fantasy, races, nationalities, etc. We got to see a diverse cast. Also, within that magic, even though you have to learn all new words where you're like, oh, wait, what does that mean? It does become evident, and you're like, wow, there are a lot of magic possibilities. Also, if you don't have magic, it doesn't mean you're not useful. My favorite faction, and I say that just because when you watch the show, you're going to see magic people, politics, non-magic people doing cool ass shit, shoot things. And my favorites
Super
were
deer.
actually the cool people doing non-magic things. They were just the absolute best to me, completely. And I completely fell in love with it. What I didn't like, okay, what I loved, female characters, yes. Diversity, yes. Diversity of magic, yes. Don't need to have magic to be important. Awesome.
Matter of fact, I want to lay into that because I love that aspect of it. At one point, is it? No, it's not Kerrigan. It is Mal's commander. Was talking about how when he first joined the army, and it's the first army is
Oh,
the
I remember this.
yeah, it's
Yep.
the non-magic users or the non-Grisha, and the
Mhm.
second army is the Grisha. When he first joined it, he said, they were talking about how important the Grisha were, and the Grisha were worth 50 of their soldiers.
100.
Oh, it was 100, a
Mm-hmm.
large amount.
Big
And
number.
then they realized that, because they needed preparation time and there were circumstances in which their abilities didn't exactly work, and there were all sorts of things, that they were getting killed more regularly than the regular soldiers. And so now the number went down to one
They
in.
changed in terms of ballistic and guns and
Right.
artillery.
Yeah.
And so that,
Well, that's true. When they first came about, it was sort of pre-modern munitions. So
Yep.
it would have been muskets and so on. At this point, it is very late 19th century, so there are
Mhm.
pistols and
They've
rifles
got,
and so
they've
on.
got basically a Gatling gun as well.
yeah, they've got
somebody has a Gatling
guns,
gun.
they've got repeaters.
Yep.
There are all sorts of things.
But the general says so. They realized that the Grisha were worth, let's say it was 50. 50 of the soldiers, and then I can't remember what the last one was, but maybe it was the invention of the repeaters. Of Gatling type guns, and he says, and now they're worth, they say that they're worth 5 of us, and I just love that idea that these people who are so special, these magic users, kind of get mowed down by modern technology, and they're really not that special in the application to the real world. So anyway, I'm sorry. I wanted to expand on that idea of what you liked.
Well,
and that is correct, and that's fine. What we still get with the magic people are called the Grisha. The Grisha. When you hear them say it, it's Grisha. I think depends on the person, but they also are privileged.
Yes.
Once you are found out to be Grisha, you are whisked away to a palace where you are fed the best food, you are raised with love, you are trained completely, and you're also given like bulletproof, fireproof, frostproof, proof. Anyway, you're given a garment called a kefka, which basically, like, even if you have a Gatling gun going, it's going to repel it. So if they aim for your face, that's on you. If they aim for anywhere this garment is.
And you see that relatively early in, maybe by the middle of the first episode, when they're ambushed.
Yes.
And I can't remember the name of them, but sort of the Norse analog group just mows down dozens and dozens of them.
Yeah, we have the idea of the magic users as witches, and there are thus witch hunters who don't accept. So we have this like religious misunderstanding, persecution, etc. Another thing I love, besides again having a femme-led show, is that there's just such a diversity of magic. Like, I saw this and I'm like, I want to be a heartrender. I don't know if you know what that means. If you're interested in it at all, go watch it. It's such a huge thing. And also, you don't have to have any magic at all to be important in this world. And that's a huge difference from a lot of these other fantasies.
The Fierda. I had to bring up a map to remember.
There we
it.
go. Thank you.
There we go.
Are
There we
are
go.
the
Queued
people
up.
living to the north of Ravka who are pretty much religious zealots, anti-Grisha?
And they're in the ice wastes. The more you see things that kind of maybe connect you to, like, I know what that means, Game of Thrones, throw it away. There's no connotation. I will say, as a person who signed up happily for the show as soon as I saw it, and I was like, and I'm going to read the books. Don't go to the books expecting the show. Don't.
Yes and no. So I think, because I haven't read the books either, but based on what I think the critique here is that the show incorporates the second duology into the first trilogy, and the characters that are introduced in the second duology are, you get to meet them right out of the gate, and they are very fascinating characters.
Thank you.
The
Thank
underworld in Ketterdam.
Thank you, Rodney. Exactly. My absolute favorite faction or group are people who can't do magic at all. And they're a diverse in terms of race, nationality. Again, we're putting things into countries that don't exist in our world. But their abilities are amazing. Their personalities are amazing. And they're my absolute favorites. They're called the Crows. So if you watch this and you see, you'll be like, oh, yeah, yeah, they're correct.
Now,
so if you are
I was just saying, having said that, I think the parts where they are not involved are, in fact, accurate to the book, Shadow and Bone, the story of Alina, Malyen, the Darkling, and so on. In that sense, yes, it's not the same thing, but only because they took something from later books and put it in there. If you don't like that part of it, the rest of the show will be very much like, from what I understand, the books are.
Right. If you aren't really into the Crows, read the trilogy.
There you go.
The Shadow and Bone trilogy. If you're like me and you're like, the Crows are the absolute best, start with the Crow's own offshoot. Learn from me. I did this. So I will just say it's great in that there are books to read, whether you start with the books or you go with the show. But I will say, as a warning, if you watch the show and you're like, I love the grit of this main character, you're not going to get that grit in the first whole book of the trilogy. Be prepared. It's a little Twilight.
Well, yeah, I'm definitely not going to disagree with that. I think early on, and in flashbacks, we see quite a bit of grit from Alina. I think once she is revealed as a Grisha and winds up in their world, it's so different from anything she understands that grit is just squished right down. Eventually squished down horribly. Again, as you say, until the very, very end.
Yeah. Just be prepared. If you love the show like I did, you're like, I need to consume every little bit of this. And then you go to read the original trilogy, which, again, doesn't include the Crows. Just be prepared.
Yeah. Just be prepared. Yeah, that's a good point. You know, that would, honestly, if I was reading the book thinking it was going to have exactly the same multiple plot twists and, involvement, and the Crows, weren't there at all, you're right, I would feel cheated.
I mean, this does seem like a good example of an instance where you write it for a TV, an 8-episode TV show, and it's probably better than the source material in a lot of ways.
I
I
do,
haven't
I
read
do
it.
think it was. And I also, if I can say one more thing before we pass it to y'all, is that if you enjoy the Darkling, the enigmatic male figure who seemed, who runs the Grisha, if you enjoy this charisma, you're not going to get it in the books.
Well, yeah. I mean, because Ben Barnes,
Because it's Prince Caspian.
it's Prince Caspian. It is Jigsaw from the Punisher series, the Netflix Punisher series. It's Ben Barnes, and he is just charismatic as all get
Charismatic,
out.
gorgeous.
The
Great actor.
character who is playing this mysterious figure in the show, enjoy it. Just soak it in. Don't expect to get any of that from the books. Just don't. So that's my big spoiler. But boy, is he fun! Oh gosh, he really is. Even as he that scenery, chewing that scenery.
There are a couple of points where he does, but I gotta say he's a pretty restrained performance for the level of darkness and malevolence power this character has.
Yeah.
Well,
anyway,
I think
Greg.
that's largely because again, spoilers here. So, I think from an acting standpoint, he's turning on the world weary, broken guy to get Alina on his side. When all along, you find out by episode 6 or 7 that he's the big bad. At which point he just completely throws off any kind of sad emo boy, seductive without being a Don Juan kind of guy. Once he goes from nibbling daintily on the scenery to just taking big bites of the scenery.
Yeah.
So what did I like? Loved the pseudo Russian setting. As much as anything, it's a genre, setting, style, whatever that we haven't really seen a whole lot of. And at this point, in sort of swords and sorcery type shows, take your pick of a lot. It's cool when you find something that's novel and different and interesting. And it worked. It wasn't just let's take Game of Thrones and put them in, Catherine the Great era Russia. I love that part. The costume design was, we're cosplayers and photographers of cosplayers here. We all know some absolutely standout costume designers and makers and seamstresses and armor makers, et cetera, et cetera. And that was, I remember reading a few things on Facebook from friends that were like, "Oh yeah, the costumes in this are spectacular." And even as someone who really doesn't know,
were
a cross stitch from a French seam, yeah, the quality level of the costumes is absolutely stand out. It was an interesting magic system. It's kind of it reminds me of a lot of sort of the last 10 or 15 years of sort of magical fantasy stuff where there's the magical system is very prescribed. Harry Potter's a great example. You go to school, you got the spells, you learn the spells, you do your magic that way, as opposed to Tolkien magic, which is more sort of natural earth magic. It's never really talked about. Gandalf doesn't really ever say aloha mora and then blow up anybody.
And Star Wars.
I crossed every stream there. I know. I like that. I don't get into it as heavily as some people do. I know there's a lot of series that sci-fi is much or more so where it's really about the sort of the mechanics of faster than light drive, or in fantasy, it's the mechanics of spell casting, and is it learned or is it innate or is it a combination? So I overall, I thought that was fairly interesting. The setting outside of sort of, I was going to say Stalingrad, St. Petersburg would be more appropriate, was a little lackluster. It was kind of your generic medieval or not medieval, late medieval, early, I don't know, 1800s London in a lot of ways. Certainly the pubs and the casinos. Cool. Didn't jump out and grab you the same way that the Grisha Palace did, and that whole aspect was brilliant. And I think if they had leaned into that more, and the intrigue, the backbiting, the Byzantine Machiavellian stuff at court, um, rather than just making the king and queen these power, fattened up on power non-entities, that aspect would have been even more interesting.
I agree with that. Like, again, when you have a whole bit about power dynamics between different um, thug club owners and all that, and all the people involved, like, we saw like bitty bits of what their empires were. Like, show us the goods.
Also, one of my favorite aspects of this is pretty much anytime Zoe Wanamaker shows up in a show or a movie, it's going to be good.
Yep. Agreed. Not like, I'm sure they blew their casting budget on Barnes, and Wanamaker isn't that well known, but is certainly worth watching in everything she shows up in.
She's super recognizable, even if she's not, leading actor,
right?
Traditional leading actor. But yeah, she's amazing. If you ever watch the BBC's Hercule Poirot, she shows up a lot. She's fantastic in that. Anyway, yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And obviously, as Harry Potter fans, most people that would be fans of this show would probably recognize her from Harry Potter.
Right. The Quidditch instructor.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
she's there. That's who that was.
I was freaking.
Hooch, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Hooch. The minute I saw her, I was like, that's a Doctor Who / and or Harry Potter person.
Two episodes of Doctor Who, yeah.
Thank you. And I was like, I really like what they do. I can't remember. This is gonna bother me. And then
I can't remember the name of the show, but she was the title character of those 2 episodes,
right?
Claudine or something like that.
And then I was just like, you know what? I know this human. I'm just gonna absorb. I'm not even gonna Google, because like, what if again, like, it was that Doctor Who episode that I hated, and then I'd be like, nah. Completely. And what Rodney said in the beginning of only the Darkling can do these shadow powers, that is not correct.
Oh, okay, yes, you're right. My bad. Bagra can do them. That's Zoe Wanamaker's character.
Yes, so Zoe Wanamaker.
There's probably a very specific reason for that I'm sure we'll get into in a minute.
Yeah.
But I couldn't say right now, but I can hold it.
Well, I mean, it's a spoiler chat. Nobody's,
Okay, so again, this incredible femme actress with this gravitas for days, who we know as Madam Hooch. If you know nothing, you know Madam Hooch is the mother of the Darkling. And there's only one bloodline, the Kurgan bloodline, that carries those shadow powers. So when we see that Mama can do it, it's just like, oh my gosh. Also, having her stand up to her stupid kid, bad guy kid, egotistical kid, he's also very handsome. That's a lot of
those
fun.
Things.
All those things. That's a lot of fun, and I'm kind of also like, Mama, I'm in your corner. Like, lay it down. But
so let me get
Yep.
Greg, if you would continue.
Yeah, those are really kind of the highlights for me. It's one of those things that somehow the sum was better than the total of the parts, because there's a lot of stuff we can pick apart, the plot holes and inexplicable romances that felt shoehorned in, that I'm sure we'll get to in a moment, that taken individually, you would say, oh, it sounds like this is a crappy show. I don't think I want to watch it.
no.
And, it's not Game of Thrones. It's not
Yeah.
It's not at that level. It's based on a YA property, so it's not trying to be at that level. In terms of the acting, the sets, just the sheer budget, if nothing else, the scope. I mean, who writes like George Martin? Um, but that said, if you're sitting around in quarantine and you want to watch a diverting, entertaining show about a bunch of kids that throw fireballs at each other, it's pretty fun.
Yeah. All right. So I agree with most of the points being that have been brought up here about the good. Um, I I'm a sucker for good world building. I always have been, and this is really good world building. It is a very rare kind of world that doesn't, in Western literature and entertainment, doesn't get presented an awful lot. Um, and that's a shame. I tried to find a quick look and I couldn't. I think Michael Moorcock had a series that was somewhat similar to this, but I can't remember what it was. The books of his that I haven't read.
You're not,
Um,
you're not thinking of the Elrica Melnibone stuff, are
no,
you?
no, no, no. It is set in a science fictional steampunky late 19th century
Are you
Russia.
thinking of Gloriana?
Uh, Maybe.
That was maybe not. That was a great book about very fictionalized Queen Victoria, Queen Elizabeth.
No. This was definitely Russian.
Okay.
And it may not have been Moorcock. I may be getting that wrong. But anyway, that's the only, whoever that author was and whatever the books are, that's the only one that comes to mind that has this kind of, fictional setting. And I think Verdugo, I'm guessing in the books, and certainly translated properly into the show, did an excellent job of making a fictional, magical, sort of both high fantasy, steampunky kind of world out of that setting. Just a wonderful job. The names of the people, particularly jumping forward in the book series, the Crows, I mean, Kaz Brecker. What the heck was the name of his main opponent?
That guy with the beard.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
real nasty dude.
Shoot, he was scary.
Yeah.
Oh,
I can't remember the name of it, but I mean, all of these names are really wonderful. His people, Jesper Fahey,
Minaj.
yeah, but I'm
Minaj
trying to
is
think
his
of.
girl.
They do say her name Gaffa,
Inej.
Inej Gaffa. Um, wonderful names. In addition to all the wonderful Russian-sounding names like Alina Starkov and so on.
Yep.
Ben Barnes is, and Zoe Wanamaker are pretty much the only people you will ever recognize out of this thing. All of the other cast are either moderately known UK, like television and maybe some movie actors, or almost unknown. There's a lot of 3-entry IMDb's in here.
Yeah.
And they do a good job.
They do a great. There are some that just blow you away. Again, I'm talking about the Crows, y'all.
I'm talking about how believable the relation. Well, the Crows, yes. Freddie Carter, who is one of the British actors, he plays Kaz Brecker, who's one of the British actors who has a deeper young adult, background in television than a lot of the others. If somebody doesn't cast him as the Joker in something really soon, I'm gonna riot.
Okay. By
Sorry,
the way,
who?
if you don't know who we're talking about, think Willem Dafoe, less like emaciated face, like 30,
You're talking
40
about
years younger.
Kaz?
Kaz.
Kaz
Yeah, he was an interesting
Kaz.
character.
got me with, I'm like, hello, Willem Dafoe face, but you don't look like you've been starving in a desert for 20 years.
For my money, the Jesper was the most interesting character in there. Very pansexual without making a big deal about it. It wasn't really a plot. Well, actually, it kind of was a plot device in one instance, but
In one, but we had so much gay in that show. It was just like, well, here's a gay couple, great. Here's a gay person, great. Here's a pan person. Like, it's so just consistently around. It's such a great thing.
Even on the Grisha's side, the two Inferni, Fedor and his partner, whose name is in here,
Ivan.
Ivan.
They're heartrenders.
Are they both? I guess they are both heartrenders. I thought one of them was an Inferni. No, you're right. I think they are both heartrenders. Without going out of their way whatsoever to like throw it in your face, you eventually realize, oh, they're not just like heartrending partners; they're lovers. And it's just like, yeah, and it's gone. It's like, okay, sure.
It's just par for the course, and that's the best way. You don't make if you don't make a big deal out of it, and you're just like, this is a thing. This is a thing. It's just like that's the life. So
and that
get
was,
used
I mean,
to
that
it.
was the thing that I did appreciate is that the characters, they were just whoever the people were. It wasn't a big thing about, this actress is of Indian descent. This guy is of I was going to say Caucasian, but Caucasus, Central Southern Europe. You've got obviously a lot of what do you call it? British actors, etc. They were all just people. That wasn't a plot point. It wasn't a device. They were dating, who they were sleeping
with our femme main character.
Well, I mean, the element of that was more this sort of, I'll use the word racism in the broadest sense. It's called bigotry rather than racism against the Grisha, mostly because they're superpowered.
I think Gogo is referencing the fact that both Alina and Mal are at least half Shu from from Shu Han, which is their Asian, China, which is directly south of Ravka.
Yeah.
Yep. And that is their enemy. So seeing them, and that's part of the intrinsic, like, this is a plot point, y'all, for people who may have feelings about this, is that racism is in there again to show that white people are shitty.
Can be. Like everybody can be. So I got to wrap up my likes because we're way long. So the other things that I really like are some of the relationships. I think for relatively brand new actors, Jesse May-Lee, who is Alina Starkov, and Archie Renault, who's Mal, their relationship is believable 100%. I mean, it's really good chemistry. Not so much the relationship which develops as a later sort of side story about this. I think she's another heartrender, Nina Zenik, and a Grushkela from Fjerda, a witch hunter, a Grisha hunter, Matthias, and they get The one thing I liked about that is that she never denies the fact that she is a manipulator. And he essentially comes to accept the fact that he's just going to have to accept that he is not being manipulated in their growing relationship. But she refuses to deny that it's not a possibility. She says she's not, but she also makes it very clear that that's literally her job, is to be a spy for Kerrigan and manipulate people.
True.
And I thought that in what is otherwise a bog standard, even more tropey YA part of the story, was a wonderful bit of sort of realistic writing. But the rest of that,
I found that aspect very, very shoehorned in and unbelievable.
Yep.
Or not believable. There's no chemistry between them. It was, bog standard is the best way to put it. It's, as I was watching it with my wife, we literally both looked at each other at the same time and went, "Tale as old as time."
Let me see, what else? The costume design. The overall artistic design, but particularly the costume design, absolutely spot on. I guess even the stag, at one point there's a very important plot element where they have to find this magical stag.
Oh
mean,
my
that
goodness.
right there is ancient European, scary, spooky, mystical, fantastic, supernatural wonderfulness. They nailed, the horned god Cernunnos, all of those
Yes, they
stag
did.
creature looks spot on.
Mm-hmm.
And
Aslan. Excuse
or
me.
yeah, yeah, he's kind of a
Horny Aslan.
horny Aslan. Thank you.
Also, if you are a person who follows the like Arthurian stuff, this may be the White Stag who brought him to Excalibur and later got pictured on the Jägermeister bottle.
Sure. Well, and there are obviously a lot of influences in Bardugo's world, and
Right.
so the world of the
But
series.
I also did like I'm a person who just loves critters, and when we saw the stag, I was just like, my eyes are just leaking. I'm not crying. It's just
It
really
is
beautiful.
pretty goddamn majestic.
It was so majestic. Like
But
if
even
you don't,
so, I got to wrap this up.
oh, I'm
Even
sorry.
the other character interactions, Mal and his other non-Grisha army buddies are army buddies like you would believe in any group of soldiers anywhere. They interact beautifully. It's most of the relationships are really good. The ones that aren't are when they get into, and this is going to lead us into our very short wrap up of things we didn't like. The ones that aren't are when they start getting really into that YA fantasy girls harem in the new school trope sort of stuff. And that's where the relationships between Alina and other people, or other people not Alina, Alina and Kerrigan, all kind of, you sit there and go, yeah, all right, let's get past this. Let's get to something more exciting and interesting again. So go.
Well, I actually haven't been on this show for a little while, so I kind of forgot how it worked, and I think I put some of my like do not likes up in the beginning.
That's
So I'm
fine.
just gonna say again, I actually disagree with some of my fellow thought people in that I actually did think that the actor playing Kerrigan, I did feel like he chewed that scenery a little much.
No, I agree. In retrospect, I agree with Greg's point that particularly once he throws off the mantle of fall in love with me, I'm broken, person living under the curse of being the only dark magic user, as he was portraying it, because they didn't know Bagra did it at that time. Yeah, he started really chewing the scenery hard at that point.
Yeah, he really did. It also kind of reminded me of stuff in real life where I have had men of things just come and they'll just get like right in your face, like, see, it's this close. And they talk to you, and you're like, you don't actually have to do that for me to hear and understand you. So I saw that like physical proximity as a like, oh, honey, no. So I didn't like that. I didn't like that at all. Um, there was actually very little that I disliked. Oh, spoiler, there is a trope where we have a major male character, Kerrigan the Darkling, and he is influenced by the death of a female lover. And I am very, very tired of that. I know many people are genderless aspect. We are tired of someone dying to then provoke the male character to why.
Yeah.
So that's there.
The creation of the fold is triggered by the king's soldiers trying to get the Darkling to way back when to work for the king again after he gave up, and they kill his wife, and that's
Yeah.
where he freaks out and lets the darkness out and literally.
So disappointed in that, especially because I loved the show. So it was like, oh, oh God, we're
Yeah.
doing this again.
It's
It took
it's
me
bog
out of
it's
it.
bog standard. It's a trope and then some. If you're not familiar with the trope of the girl in the refrigerator, that was reminiscent of that.
Yeah.
If you're not familiar, go look it up. We don't have time to dive into it, but
And if
um,
that's the kind of thing that makes you go, oh, heck no, fast forward, skip it.
yeah.
It doesn't make him any more or less sympathetic.
Right.
So that's my
I
things,
mean,
Rodney. I'm done.
people do crazy things out of an excess of grief, but this was just played as such a
Oh,
I won't work for the king. Let's murder your wife. Darkness. It was
Prophet. Oh no, it's a
very
different meme.
scripted and very
your
telegraphed.
princess is in another castle. Oh wait, no, she's dead. I will avenge and get angry. Come on. I'm done. I'm done.
So, Greg.
Uh, I just I think the things I had problems with were little nitpicky things that come down to writing for shows like that. Um, Mal getting absolutely Swiss cheesed with a Gatling gun and being like, I'm okay. It's fine. I mean, literally, like Swiss cheese holes of, and his two friends are dead. They're dead, but he somehow manages to like go through the wilderness and find his way back.
Yeah.
Not
Also,
just
as somebody who's
he
done
was
a
like in
lot,
ice country.
yeah.
Oh yeah, he
Someone
was
done
over
a
the
lot
border
of-
in Fierda.
Yeah. So Rodney also, as someone who grew up in Maine and spent a lot of time outdoors, you don't walk around in the great northern woods in the dead of winter without a hat or gloves on. You die quickly that way.
You at the
Period.
very least you lose fingers, ears,
Yeah, you
tip of your
come back
nose.
with no tip of your nose, no ears, etc. I know it's super nitpicky and there's no good way to show travel time in TV shows, but just the time jumps where it takes 3 weeks to get here, but everything happens simultaneously at the other place. Again, nitpicky type stuff. It got, I think, the point at which Alina got to the palace became very by the numbers. You got to have Zoya in there as the affronted, used to be the golden child, but now the actual golden child shows up and she's, you're better than me.
Yeah, that was
Didn't
dumb.
care for that too much.
Nope.
And for me, the big, I mean, this isn't a criticism of this show in particular. It just the leaning into of the whole chosen one trope. I mean, for God's sakes, haven't we done this enough at this point?
Yeah, no, stop already. Also, if you are a DM or a GM, stop with that in your games.
Yeah.
It's not cool.
And if
everyone else who's
like
not the chosen one will be like, I'm not going to do the thing. I'm just going to be like, no.
And I only think of this because in our private group talking about this one came up today. If you don't like the whole chosen one trope, you are not going to like the Wheel of Time when that comes out.
Good point. All 4,792 books.
Yeah, exactly.
Crash, thanks for jumping into the chat. I'm always a bit half and half on being critical about like stuff like weather impact and travel in worlds built around magic.
Yep.
That's a good point. Although magic, aside from providing like wind to move sail craft, has almost no role in the transportation in this world.
Nope.
You can't go faster than you can make the wind blow. There's no teleportation. People don't, that's not a thing. So
yeah.
So
Crash, I was just gonna say, Crash. I know exactly what you're talking about. It seems picky and petty to dive into something like that, but I do remember vividly being like, "Come on, the guy would be dead from frostbite by now."
Yep.
And does it ruin the show?
The guy would
Absolutely
be dead
not.
by bullet holes, but sure.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
maybe
they show
filled
later
with
when he
ice
gets-
and they froze and it kept him from bleeding out.
They show later when he gets healed, he's got holes. So it's just.
Yep.
I mean, one of them is clearly a pierced lung. But anyway. So not anything new or different in my criticism than anything that's been said so far. Um, I think the thing that I liked least about it was when it became just a YA, the chosen one girl and her pick the harem boy or general or whatever. And it's like, yeah, okay, Twilight, we're done. It's been done before. Um, a harem is, a harem choice. Hunger Games, whatever, you name it, it's out there. Um, could be like this is a crash. Could be like the video game Bard's Tale, where you're chosen one, and then you go on your first quest and find an area full of chosen ones, and you're told that anyone can be chosen. That's pretty cool. That would be nice. I'd like to see that, but not in this case. She is the Sun Summoner. There is no other. Yeah. Blah blah blah. It is a little bit tropey. It does twist them occasionally, or it applies them well, like Bagra. The idea of the evil, the main evil having a possibly sympathetic or contradictory to the evil mother or parent is pretty cool. It's been done before, but they did it pretty well.
Bagra and also the tailor, who was a spy.
Yeah.
Very sympathetic.
Genya, the redhead here.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's one of the other things that they get. Here is a kind of a content warning. All of these characters in the small school, the Grisha school, are teenagers. According to the descriptions, they don't make that clear in the series at all, whether they are young adults, or what. But in the book, they're teenagers. And Genya makes it very clear that she is a toy for the king. Zoya makes it very clear that until Kerrigan brought Alina in and suddenly started paying attention to her, she was sexually involved with this adult general. That's something that you may want to pay attention to as you go through the series. Again, in the series, they don't make it clear what the age of the younger...
And some of the actors kind of just look like they're in their 20s.
Yes.
So
yeah,
that kind of takes that kind of...
And most of the actors, actually, it's a good point. Most of the actors look like they're in their 20s and probably are. So if you don't know that about the book, just ignore what I said. Other than that, though, I liked it. And again, I don't dislike anything except where it was clear that this was a first-time author relying too much on tropes that got just sort of picked up and put whole cloth into the series. But it's a good watch. It's a fun watch. I guess I'm going to start with our wrap-up, because Crash, implying that it's more a manipulation tactic than actual save the world thing. Oh, that must be replying back to the Bard's Tale. Getting the Deathstroke vibe. Yeah, not that blatant or... Anyway, we're not even going to get into the whole Deathstroke thing, because then we'd be here forever. So I'm going to start, and then we're going to go around. I recommend it. I give it a fairly hearty recommendation. I wouldn't go a stellar recommendation. And the recommendation would be conditional. If you like really creative world building, really creative magic systems, good young actors doing good work, the gorgeous Ben Barnes being, wonderfully evil and chewing up scenery, then, and beautiful, beautiful art design, then I say go for it. If none of that is, your bag, or if you just can't get past the, young adult tropes, then, give it a try and see how long you go. So let's go, Greg. Wrap up.
I pretty much echo everything Rodney just said. I enjoyed it. Glad I watched it. Chances are pretty good if it gets picked up. I'll watch the second season, assuming there is one. I don't know that I loved it enough to watch it again. The first season, that is. But Yeah, on the plus side, great cost, production design overall. All aspects of production design were great. Were a lot of fun, very creative. The setting in kind of a pseudo Russian environment was novel and different, and lend itself well. But yeah, a lot of the very YA tropes, the romantic stuff felt very shoehorned in, very, because the script calls for it, if you follow me, and not necessarily all that authentic or yeah, authentic. Um, but I'm also a 50 something white, mostly straight cis guy. So your mileage will vary from mine.
Good point. And Go-Go.
I mostly loved it. I've also watched the whole series now 3 times and
Wow.
attempted the books. And again, I found a faction that I love. Once if you watch it, the crows. I'm all about the crows, and I also feel in my heart that I'm a heart render. I already have that. I'm also in a whole bunch of groups already of talking about this that are feminist gay groups. So I will say this as a feminist gay woman person. Take it with a grain of salt. Be prepared to fast forward through some things. Just know that it is YA. So it's not going to be everything that we want, but there's some good stuff in there. And I'm excited to see what happens next.
I think we covered this in Nerd Week Live, that it has already been renewed for a second season.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have to do this. I go, my one nitpick, my one historical, um, everything else is designed beautifully to evoke late 19th century Russia and Europe in general, except the two characters we see wielding revolvers. They are absolutely standard uh, Colt, guns that won the West style revolvers. And if you know anything about late 19th century European guns, they made some beautiful, wonderfully not US looking handguns,
I can
particularly
also
the
get into
Russians.
some stuff as a person who lived in Russia for a while, but I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but so that was my only complaint. They went out of their way in the Mummy to give Rick O'Connell the kind of handguns that somebody serving in the French Foreign Legion would actually have had, two Belgian French revolvers.
Yep.
They could have done that with Jesper and other people. The only other person you actually see wielding a revolver. Um,
But Jesper is like the gun
Oh,
whisperer. I think it
yeah.
probably made
Yeah.
sense for
Yeah.
him to
Okay.
have
If we're talking
something
about
interesting and
Jesper,
unique.
that he's in the crows and they are all very special.
okay. Obviously, you stand the crows. Luminous, thanks for the discussion, folks. From what you have said, it sounds like the show does not break new ground. It does in
Well,
the one way
I
that,
mean,
yeah, it does in a couple of ways. One, it takes the chosen one type trope and properly makes it a fantasy trope with a strong female lead character. Starts strong, gets squished, ultimately comes back strong again.
not the only strong female character. You have so many of them.
True. It breaks new ground in having insane levels of diversity.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic. And in the idea of taking a Russian influenced or based fantasy setting, which is very uncommon, at least in Western entertainment. So, in that sense, I would say it breaks some new ground. It is not breaking literary new ground. No.
Correct.
Well, if you like that, I'm just going to throw out a complete side note. If you like that Russian folklore, Russian setting, read The Bear and the Nightingale. That whole series is fantastic.
I haven't read it. You've recommended it to me a million times. One of these days, I'll get around to it.
Never
Um,
heard it, so
Oof. We'll
Yeah.
talk.
Yeah.
okay.
It's won a couple of awards, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, that's it, folks. Thank you all for joining us. Let's see, a couple of housekeeping things. As always, that I almost always forget to do is bring up the Patreon slide. That is our Patreon, patreon.com/nerdcaliber. Please check it out. If you would like to support us, we would love to have you do so. We just have, I believe, 2 very low dollar tiers, mainly because we don't really have any kind of rewards other than putting your name at the end of our pre-made videos, not these live things. And that's it. It's basically there if you want to support us for going to cons coming forward and things like that. Patreon.com/nerdcaliber. Next Monday, our No Nerd Caliber show will be about our top 3 vampire movies or television shows. I'm very much looking forward to that. As is, I think, everybody here. Sharp teeth.
Pointy.
Teeth.
I think I might actually put my fangs on.
There you go.
Oh,
And the reason we're doing that is because our next full fat spoiler chat next Thursday is going to be Castlevania, which dropped just this past week, also on Netflix. So you've got until next Thursday to watch Castlevania and join us in the chats if you would like to. And then, of course, Tuesday is our Nerd Week Live, and today I dumped a ton of stuff. Today was busy. So it's going to be another big show next week. So we will see you then. Let's see. We're going to go around this way this time. Go, if you would give us a goodbye.
Hi, I had a great time tonight. I've been so looking forward to doing this, and I kind of forgot that we had to keep it a little, like, quicker, so my bad.
Not bad at all.
What a great time talking about this. Also, I can't wait to see you guys for the No Nerd Caliber with the vampires. Guys, it's going to be so fun. Come back and see us on Monday. I can't wait.
Luminous, excellent. Apparently they missed the opportunity to showcase some spiffy Russian hats. There are a couple, but it is not a common thing.
Yep. No, there are. They exist.
They're in there. They're just not very common.
How Arctic a lot of the scenery is, they should be a lot more giant furry hats.
This is true. And Greg, if you would, give us a goodbye.
Night, everybody. Wonder Llama coming at you. We will see you. I'll be here for No Nerd Caliber with, I think I'm going to have to dig out the Vampire Finery for that one.
Right? Let's do it. Let's totally do it.
Okay, I don't have any. I'm going to have to make some from a plastic fork.
Just, a couple of holes in the neck
a couple of holes
with some blood. You can be a victim.
Or I could put on a big floppy hat and do a gender bend Lady D. So,
I mean, I wouldn't be mad about that at all. I would be so into that.
I do not have a hat of that dimension. Thank God. Anyway.
I bet the internet does.
I bet the internet does. And gosh, it won't make it here in a week. So, on that note, folks, thank you very much for the chats. Very nice. Crash, thanks for jumping in. Luminous, Todoroki. And we'll see you hopefully in one of our upcoming shows. In the meantime, if you haven't, get vaccinated. That's not pointing at my tattoo, although that is where I got vaccinated. Yep, there you go. Stab that kitty. In my case, it's a hawk. I got stabbed right in the hawk's head. Get vaccinated, please.
Right in the fish head.
Right in the fish head. Make it safe. Make the world safe for the people that you care about that have a problem getting the vaccine. Kids under 12, people with, compromised immune systems. They're still out there, folks. Let's kill this thing completely.
Also, I know that we broadcast and we have people outside of America, and having just traveled outside of America, I just want to say I wish that I hope and wish that you get the privilege that we have in America. I hope you all get your vaccine soon.
Hear, hear. On that note, thank you very much, folks, and we'll see you in one of the upcoming shows. Hopefully, good night. Bye.